Hi, you're back with Zoe from Business Basics. I thought we'd have a look at planning expenditure, some common principles to be considered when you're planning your personal finances today. So we're going to have a look at things like what debt is, and just basically go some key fundamentals that you need to be aware of when you are planning your personal finance. This tutorial is going to be split into two halves just because of the size of it. It does cover quite a lot and in quite a lot of detail. So just be sure to hang around for part two. So we're going to start with some very basic terminology because actually it's really important just to identify what debt is. So debt is basically the duty or obligation to pay money, render services or deliver goods. So I just want you to sit and think about for a second of an example in your business that you might mean, or that might mean that you need to pay debt or when you could get into debt. So if you've got a notepad beside you, just make a quick list of that and pause the video and come back to me when you're ready. So quite often we're asked how to avoid getting into debt in business, and there are multiple ways. So very crudely, I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. So if you're selling goods to customers on credit, you must ensure that you've checked their credit worthiness and set appropriate credit limits, because quite often when you're starting a business, you will have people approach you who just want to purchase your item right now. They'll promise you that they can sell it, that they'll pay in their credit terms within 20 days, they're really reputable, and you've spent some time building that relationship with them. Well, actually, if you've not done your research, then the chances are you could get stung and actually they'll run off with your product. They won't pay for the item that they've purchased. And that could lead you getting into debt, particularly in the early stages when you are a small or sole trader, that actually it could mean that you have to go into liquidation and actually you have to maybe declare yourself bankrupt. So always ask for trade references for new customers, always complete a credit check, and just whilst you're starting out, just set a lower credit limit so that you're not having to do huge amounts of production on your products without actually receiving any of the money up front. Because don't forget, if you're doing that, you're going to have to purchase the goods, the raw materials, you're going to have to make them, ship them before you actually receive any money. It's an extremely risky way to do business. Make sure that when you are also setting those credit terms and those supplier agreements that you draw up clear terms and conditions. There's huge amounts of help online for you if you're not sure what to do. But if you are just a little bit concerned, just seek the help of a professional advisor. Use things like LinkedIn, pose a question on there to your business network, and I'm sure that you will find very, very quickly that you will be able to gain some support. And just make customers aware of them. So it's okay you having and drawing up these terms and conditions, but if your customers aren't aware of them, actually they won't know what they need to adhere to. So it's really, really important that actually you link them on your website as well, you publicise them, and you have them printed on the copy or on the back of your invoice paper. So that it's always there and there can never be any doubt that actually they weren't told, therefore they won't be paying. And ensure that you make sure that you remind your customers that you have a statutory right to charge interest on late payments, even if you do not plan to enforce it. Sometimes, particularly in the early days when you're all working together as small businesses, actually that can be just enough for them to prioritise your invoices over anybody else's, and that will be really key for your success and your business growth, as well as just maintaining those relationships with your customers. So make sure that when you've set up your business accounts that you know where and who you're going to send your invoices to. So don't send them, if you're doing it via email, to a generic email address where they could get lost. Make sure that you have found out who the key contacts are within your business. Perhaps they're going to be your account holder, or perhaps you need to be aware of who your finance manager is at the other end, just so that you have someone personal to send the invoices to so that you can then chase it up. And make sure that if you are obviously sending your invoices, you do so promptly, because quite often you get so caught up in the day-to-day running of the business, producing your product and the operational management, that actually you've forgotten to do the fundamental thing, which is get the money back in and obviously sending the invoices. So do them on the day of dispatch. You know when they've gone and set those wheels in motion so that you know when those payments are going to be received. And then you need to set up a calendar where you can also start chasing them as soon as that payment doesn't come in. So the sooner you do this, the sooner it should be that you're paid, and it will also tell the other business that you're working with, your customer, that actually you are a professional outfit and you have these controls in place, and actually this is a priority for you. You may also want to find out if your customer has a regular payment system, and by that, quite often in other businesses they will have a monthly run where they pay their payroll and where they pay their invoices. So you may want to consider what date you send their invoice so that you can make sure that you're always getting it in within that one day window, if you like, because quite often with businesses it is only a 1 day that they post it. So you may need to just consider adjusting your system to fit in with theirs, so that you know exactly when to expect it, when their deadline is. So if you send your goods on, say, the 1st, you know you've got to have the invoice to them by the 5th, so that then they can process payment for the 12th. Otherwise you'll be missed and it will go in the next month's run. So ensure you have those conversations with the businesses to make sure you know exactly when your money's coming in, and that will help you manage your cash flow effectively. And don't be afraid to phone your contact when an invoice becomes overdue. Businesses are really busy, you're going to be really busy, and just make sure that obviously you're just keeping the diplomatic approach. You're still relationship building, you're not being autocratic and saying, where's my money? You are just sort of, giving a gentle reminder. And then as that sort of relationship builds, you may find that actually you do start receiving the money on a more regular basis. And don't be afraid to cut ties. If they're not going to pay, just don't do business with them. There's no such thing as accepting a bad deal. Don't do it in business. It's a huge risk, and ultimately it will impact your your ability to trade in the future. So if they're not paying, they're receiving your goods or services, you've chased them multiple times and you're now having to sell your debt onto a debt factoring company, stop business with them. There will always be other clients out there, and it's not worth the risk, no matter what they promise you. Make sure that if customers and you are actually having to pay things, that actually you're resolving your disputes quickly, because as well as having relationships with your customer base, the relationship with your supplier is also going to be paramount to how well you're able to trade and how successful your business is. So if, for example, you send off a faulty product to a customer, just make sure that actually you're going the extra mile, that you're replacing the product, you're apologetic, so that you're not losing that customer. They will come back to you, and actually they'll remember the good customer service you're giving them. Maybe you want to reconsider the terms on which you do business. So for example, if you're going to increase your prices, just remember to write in the terms and conditions that prices will be reviewed on a monthly or annual basis. So obviously we're always going to have that scenario where the more they order, probably the lower the price is going to be. But just make them aware that actually you do consistently review your prices, and then if there ever is a price increase and you want to enforce that, it doesn't come at such a shock. And remember to formulate a strategy in case your debtor continues to delay payment. So you may have to write off small debts, and these are not cost effective to chase. So just remember that actually if your debt is worth £10 but actually you're spending several hours chasing that £10, ask yourself, is it worth it? Just make a mental note that actually you're not going to probably work with that business in the future because of the unpaid debt. Or if they want to work with you in the future, then you would renegotiate credit terms with them so that actually perhaps they would pay up front, so that you just avoid the accumulation of minute debts the whole time. And remember, if you do need to involve a professional advisor and your attempts to recover your debt are unsuccessful, you can gain help through the Citizens Advice Bureau. You can appoint a solicitor, and obviously if it is a substantial amount, you can take it to the small claims court if it's up to the value of £5,000. And they are dealt with relatively quickly and inexpensively, so don't be afraid to push those buttons and make sure that actually you're not coming across as a walkover in terms of business, because you know that when you're dealing with customers, actually what if one's got away with paying, actually you don't know that they're not linked to another one and they're not having the conversation, well, they didn't chase me, so why would you pay? So just bear that in mind. So we're going to leave it there, and then in the next tutorial we're going to pick up and we're going to talk about 10 ways so that you can control costs within your business to make sure that you are absolutely effective when it comes to managing those all-important financial decisions, and that you're able to manage the control and cash flow in your business so that actually you don't run into debt. So see you in my next video where we'll pick up where we left off. Thanks for watching. Bye.